I just want you guys to understand that this guy is not even a World of Warcraft content creator, and he's still the best WoW content creator out there. Just goes to show how much we're in a dire state. No, but his videos are great. Finally, I get to catch his video a couple of hours after, like, he uploads it.
I want to tell you a story
God
about
bless.
my favorite video game advertisement of all time. We're in Irvine, California, many years ago at Blizzard Entertainment's headquarters. And today, the technical support team is sharing a voicemail that one customer left over the weekend. Although its exact wording has been lost to time, every employee from back then remembers.
They had hair? Whoa! Okay, that's crazy. Dude, this is Ed Edhelm, I think that's his name, and this is Mike Morheim. Jesus, that's crazy. Where's Pirate Software Dad? Oh, that's him! That's him, right? That's Pirate Software Father, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that, but I think that is him. He's actually goated.
How
he
it
made
went.
all the cinematics.
A caller was in the middle of leaving a message about some game he was playing when halfway through the voicemail, his wife started
unfortunately,
yelling at him
the
in
son
the
didn't
background.
contribute as
you
much.
You could hear her shout from the other side of the room. Get
You
off
can
that
see it.
stupid game.
Yeah.
The guy responded, 1 minute, honey. I just have to get this taken care of. At which point, she came back at him with, that game is the reason we're not having sex anymore. When I first read this story and
Based. I bet he's a horde gamer. I like that guy. He's a real one. He had to sacrifice to gain power. I always appreciate that.
Jason
I bet he's orc main too, as he should be.
Schreier's book, Play Nice, I couldn't believe I had never heard it before. What a great anecdote that so perfectly encapsulates how good some games can get. It certainly feels fitting that Blizzard were the ones who received this message. If you were trying to compile a list of all the games that are literally better than sex, it would be hard to not populate it entirely with titles from their
We're about to
golden
play
age.
that.
But with that context,
It's Warcraft
it might be
Day.
surprising to hear the game that sparked that voicemail argument wasn't World of Warcraft. It wasn't Diablo or StarCraft or even Warcraft
Vikings?
3. That quote was about Warcraft 2, the base game, not even the expansion.
What?
Now, when I first got
Dude,
about Warcraft...
Look how beautiful that is. Look how beautiful that is. You had magazines, PC Gamer. Man, video games used to be something. It used to be like sensational cultural thing. It was so crazy. Now it's so ubiquitous and it lost so much flavor because every company is doing it. Everyone is just hopping on the market. But back in the day, it used to mean something. It's like looking at the cover art for a CD that you enjoyed for a video game, right? And you had all of these selling points and the highlights of the game. It was the best. It was truly an experience. Unfortunately, I barely got to experience that because... And I was born in 98, right? So even though I'm old and bald and I'm just wearing a wig, I never got to experience this. And it would forever will kind of be like a thing on my heart. It will just weigh heavily on me.
2? The base game? Not even the expansion? Now, when I first got into the Warcraft franchise by playing through Warcraft 3 and now my classic WoW series, I kind of assumed that these were the games that made everybody fall in love with Azeroth. Obviously, they weren't the first, and maybe the titles that came before were great for their era, but... I mean, just look at them. The first Warcrafts were in 2D, not even in isometric perspective. Most of their stories were told through scrolling text before each mission. They certainly don't look very impressive from a modern lens. For all the epic moments this series would come to be known for, I thought that there was no way these games had that same kind of compelling story and characters and gameplay. But after hearing that anecdote about the voicemail, I had to find out for myself. So I went back and played through every campaign from Warcraft Orcs and Humans and Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness to see if they really are that good. And not to spoil anything, but say a prayer for my wife.
Ooh, isn't that funny how everyone in video game, like the video game industry is going back? Like we're going back to the ape. And I'm glad, man. Like reject humanity. Like that is the way to go. I'm starting to play Warcraft 3. Well, I've already started. Today is Warcraft 3 day. We did the calling of Stratholme on the last stream, so now it's the next mission. And I'm playing it for the first time. I'm having a blast. And it seems like everyone is on that arc, too. It's just like old games slapped. They were good. And it's so crazy that you play them today after seeing like the market with all of the heavily graphic stuff and all of that detail, you know, shenaniganry. Nobody really cares. Everyone just wants a good game at the baseline.
Warcraft Orcs and Humans was a significant title in that this game begins with Blizzard's first ever cinematic. A narrator introduces us to the setting and conflict. In the human kingdoms of Azeroth, a prosperous civilization lived until suddenly
I can
one
almost
day,
see that it's a
Orcish
castle.
hordes appeared. Nobody knew where the orcs came from and certainly weren't prepared for their ferociousness, but regardless, these two sides are now locked in a seemingly eternal conflict.
It looks
it's up
so
to you,
good.
the player, to lead either faction through its respective campaign and win what will come to be known later as the First War. We're going to play through both campaigns start to finish because there's a lot to talk about here, but starting off with the human side of things, our first mission sees us take up the role of Regent to King Lane Rin of Stormwind and serves as a basic tutorial for how an RTS works. We're tasked with building a barracks alongside 6 total farms to earn victory, which does well in not just teaching the basics of RTS mechanics, but also exposes us to some of the quirks we're going to find in this game. Like in Warcraft 1, all the buildings have to be built on roads that you can expand out from your town center at the cost of gold, which kind of turns this title into a mini city manager just as much as it's an RTS, especially since poor city layout can lead to some traffic jams of workers if you don't do a proper bit of city planning. Fog of War is also a little unusual here. Warcraft sees players starting off each level with limited vision and a completely obscured map, as RTS games typically do. But in this game, once a unit explores a portion of the map, you gain vision of that area forever. This first mission also teaches us scouting is ultra important in relation to resource gathering, since at the start of the mission, you not only can't see where to harvest lumber or gold from your starting position, but you're also not given enough gold in your closest mine to complete the level, meaning you're going to have to explore and find the second gold mine on the map if you're going to progress. All in all, this whole mission does a really great job of giving a crash course to the real-time strategy genre, and it was important that Blizzard tutorialized well here, since Orcs and Humans was one of the first RTS titles to ever be released. As a bit of history, the game that most credit with inventing the RTS genre was Dune 2, made by Westwood Studios, released in 1992. Many like to call this the first real RTS game and say that Warcraft Orcs and Humans was the second real one. As the story goes, Blizzard employees got so addicted to Dune back in the day, while also growing frustrated with certain features it lacked, that they went...
Blizzard copies a game and makes it better. A tale as old as time itself. Nowadays, Blizzard just copies a game and makes it worse. They can't even copy Guild Wars 2 in the right way.
To make a version of their own. Namely, Dune didn't have any kind of multiplayer, and Blizzard thought it might be fun to play a game like this against other players, hence their insistence that this title would allow for PvP game modes over LAN or modem networks. This being Blizzard, though, multiplayer was not the only thing they brought to the RTS world. There were tons of other things that Orcs and Humans did first before any other contemporary, my personal favorite being how it treated story. Keep in mind, back in the 80s and early 90s, this was still the era of gaming governed by John Carmack's quote that story in a game is like story in a porn movie. You expect it, but it's not that important.
He looks like the type of person to say such a thing.
As such, most games from back then were happy to leave story absent or just license a popular franchise that could imply a narrative. That's what Dune 2 did after all. While that game had its own campaigns with various playable factions, it wasn't too innovative narratively speaking, mostly content to draw on a fantasy world that many audiences already knew. Blizzard were originally planning on doing the same thing, as co-founder Alan Adham was hoping to license the Warhammer franchise for their RTS to help sell units. It was only after some employee pushback that the company realized it might be more fun to have complete creative control over where they took their game. Eventually, after committing to building their own original fantasy world, narrative direction was mostly given to the producer and voice actor Bill Roper, who penned a lot of the lore and backstory. There's actually a really great anecdote about how he was brought onto the team in Play Nice. Originally, Roper was just hired to do freelance work, recording voiceover for a demo that would later turn into the game's introductory cutscene. He wasn't given a script for this and had to improvise nearly all the lines. Bill still enjoyed his experience with Blizzard so much, though, he wanted to be hired full-time, going so far as to promise their co-founders that he would wash Alan's car and give Mike Morhaime a rare Magic the Gathering card if they gave him...
Based. Actually based. My God, you knew he was a real one. You knew that he was a real one. He knew how to convince people. Man, it's so crazy that Magic the Gathering existed back in the day, too. It's like such an old game, and it's such a great one. Unfortunately, nowadays, it has been completely decimated by Hasbro and all the weird cash grab expansions. My God.
A job, which turned out to be unnecessary, as his work already impressed both of them so much, he was hired to write the rest of the Warcraft
okay,
narrative.
so he was good
This
enough.
narrative was then revealed to the player either through Bill's own voice in the introductory cinematic, or it was told through text in the pre-mission briefs and the manual that came with the game. This manual is particularly great since you get to see Bill's words carving out the very first pieces of lore and backstory for this franchise, right alongside artwork by the recently hired comic book fiend Chris Metzen. Anyway, getting back to gameplay, after completing our first mission, the next few teach us a bit more about the basics of how combat in an RTS works. We're slowly given new units to unlock, new buildings to construct, and eventually take down an enemy base, exposing us to the Horde and their war chief Blackhand, leader of the Blackrock clan. Mission 4, though, is when the game really starts to kick into gear. One of the heroes of Stormwind we were introduced to through the manual, Sir Anduin Lothar, has been sent not long ago into the Dead Mines to search for an item called the Tome of Divinity, but having not returned for some time, the monks of Northshire Abbey sensed he's in trouble. As such, King Lane orders me to go into the dungeon myself to rescue him. And let me say, when I came across this mission, it frankly blew my mind. As someone that first got hooked on the universe of Azeroth from Warcraft 3's storyline, then going and playing through classic WoW, one of the things that shocked me about World of Warcraft was how little connective tissue that game had to the title that came before it. At least if you chose to play a human going through their starting zones,
Yeah, I think that vanilla World of Warcraft did kind of just made the world, and it didn't really delve into the story. It was just kind of a setting things. But definitely since TBC, and like, you know, as they tried down the line with the other expansions, they focused heavily more on the story. So, yeah, I do agree. Yeah, why is it we cannot progress into a new graphic game today? Imagine still be using this engine graphics. True. Absolutely.
Didn't really get any regions or characters or references to Warcraft 3, not for many levels. Personally, it wasn't until I discovered the story of the Defias Brotherhood and then plunged into the Dead Mines that I was really sold on playing all the way through WoW. So I was frankly stunned that the Dead Mines are also the moment where you get sold on the very first Warcraft. Here, we're given a proper dungeon crawl and no build mission where our limited forces of soldiers have to make our way through the underground caverns until we find Lothar and bring him back safely. This was actually, to my knowledge, the very first no-build mission ever created in an RTS campaign. It's a really fun kind of challenge the genre would later become known for, and this level introduces you to the idea really well, giving players clerics who have an active ability they can use to heal their forces anytime they start taking damage. Oh yeah, this is also the first time a unit has had an active ability in an RTS. God, we are 4 levels in, and we're already seeing how this game was so far ahead of its time. My favorite part was still the storytelling, though. As we plunge deeper into the dungeon, it's not long before we come across some pixelated body horror of fallen soldiers showing the fate that Lothar's companions suffered. Even when Blizzard were dealing with such low-scale images, they still found creative ways to build a sense of atmosphere for their world. It might be worth mentioning now that I am playing the remastered version of this game, by the way, a remaster Blizzard released a few years ago that is actually surprisingly good. The one downside of the remaster is there are some updated graphics that don't look nearly as cool as the original pixel art, but you can turn those off by hitting F5, thankfully. After making my way through the mines, I managed to find Sir Lothar and escort him back to safety. Mission complete. In our next few missions, we get some more name drops, visiting locations we recognize, from Stormwind and Northshire Abbey to Elwyn Forest. Even beyond the fact I get to geek out about these places I already know, I had a lot of fun in these missions seeing some of the similarly innovative level design. While some of these were just basic levels typical of an RTS game where I need to build a base and go destroy an enemy, in others, I need to go and defend a village that's already under attack first, saving buildings that I would otherwise have to rebuild. Or I might already be given an army that needs to go and free some imprisoned workers before I'm allowed to build anything myself. To my knowledge, Dune 2 and other games you could call RTS titles from before, they never really had this kind of setup. They were always the same formula of just building a base and then eventually raising an army to go destroy the enemy. The fact Blizzard had such forward-thinking level design by comparison really makes this game hold up to an astonishing degree for something that is 30 plus years old. I do know a lot of what makes this game so accessible for me is the fact that I'm playing the remastered version though. Like on the original MS-DOS or Mac OS version, the controls were just barbaric. You couldn't right-click a group of units and make them do anything like harvest, move, or attack. You always had to hit a keybind for every single command. H for harvest, M for move, A for attack. If you wanted to highlight multiple units, you also could—
Man, people were gaming back in the day. That's crazy. They get used to it. You know what's funny? Because games you played back then, nobody really cared. You just got used to stuff. I think now key bindings and all that has been homogenized, which generally speaking is a good thing because it makes a game easier to pick up. But this had flavor. Like, this had flavor. If someone played the game good, you knew you had to sacrifice something for it.
couldn't just drag your mouse. You had to always hit control before clicking and dragging to create a selection box. And of course, there were no conveniences that we've come to expect in RTS games, like being able to control group certain units. To Blizzard's credit, this game did have very modern controls for its time. This was actually the first RTS ever to have multiple unit selection with groups up to 4 soldiers you could command at once. Although that doesn't make up for the fact that even if you wanted to do something like move your camera screen on the original, you couldn't just drag your mouse to the edge of the window. You also had to hold control while doing even that. That's one of the things that this remastered version does so well. It introduces just enough niceties like right clicks and control groups and other modernized camera controls to make the game much more playable, but it doesn't give you everything you're used to in an RTS. There is no queuing units in buildings, no rally points or shift commands. The lack of these features feels appropriate for an older game since they are just conveniences, and the fact that they aren't included creates just enough friction that it makes the game a bit of a challenge to beat. I am slightly ashamed to say I needed to restart a few missions when playing through the game on my own, but that also makes this a fun game. A game's not at its best unless it's really pushing you to think hard about how to beat it. Anyway, though,
just edit those parts out and say you did it first try. Easy. I never did it, because every time I did something, it was always first try for real.
real highlight of
And if anyone tells you otherwise, they lie.
this title was still the story, and Mission 8 is when the story kicks into high gear. It's now, we're told, the evil warlock Medivh has begun draining the soul of the land to increase his dark powers. As such, we need to take a party of soldiers into the Tower of Karazhan to go slay him and his minions. Although this Medivh character comes seemingly out of nowhere if you've only been paying attention to the game's manual explains the
Don't worry, it's kind of like his thing. He just vague posts and leave.
Story a bit more, giving a year-by-year backstory on his origins and lore. There we learn in the year 559 he was born to a mysterious traveler woman who disappeared shortly after his birth. As such, he was taken into the court of King Rin III as a ward of the kingdom. Then, one night, it was revealed the poor child had some kind of curse, which caused him to inadvertently kill his own father in an explosion of magic before falling into a deep sleep. He only woke many years later as an adult and powerful mage, disappearing suspiciously close to when the horde of orcs showed up to attack Azeroth. That was when Medivh's mother returned, letting the kingdom know some dark force had corrupted her son, and that he was now a beacon of mystic power. As such, it falls on us to enter the tower where he resides and slay him ourselves. And honestly, this was so cool to go back and experience after.
I didn't even know that. That's cool as hell. The fuck? Whoa. Wow. I mean, games used to be really about lore back then, even if it's like at the time Blizzard were innovative with that, because you just had like Heroes of Might and Magic, you had all of that stuff. It's so good. It's so good. I wish we had that, like the scrolling tech thing like in Diablo. It's so flavorful. I absolutely love that, but I'm a lore nerd, so maybe just like a me thing.
Playing Warcraft 3. As a reminder, in that game, we learned that the Prophet going around trying to save humanity and the orcs is Medivh, who mentions that he was trying to atone for some sort of sins as he previously doomed humanity. You don't really get to learn much more about it in that game. You have to go back and play the original to see exactly what happened, which is so cool. Anyway, I go into Karazhan and slay Medivh, which proves to be a challenge with some of the incredibly dangerous minions he summons, but I get the job done, allowing Stormwind to turn its attention back to the Horde. In the next series of missions, I'm told to take my army on the offense as I begin marching attacks against Blackhand and his Blackrock orcs scattered around the Borderlands and Black Morass. Things are going well enough until suddenly King Lane is assassinated. Some half-orc named Garona breached Stormwind Keep and managed to slay the monarch. His last orders were apparently to make me the Grand Marshal of the army. Now we have to strike back, firstly by taking out a Temple of the Damned in another super fun dungeon crawl. Each one of these missions, of course, has not only progressed the story, but has continued unlocking new units for my race, now giving me access to my entire forces, including the ultra-powerful water elementals. These, once researched, are creatures that can be summoned by my mages that only last for a timed limit, but they are incredibly powerful and are super fun to spam in the last few missions. It's always fun at the end of an RTS campaign when you get to go mass units like this. The campaign finale comes shortly after, when we march and assault on Blackrock Spire to slay Blackhand and finally push the Horde back. In terms of levels, this one feels like a doozy, as I have my water elementals I can spam, and I'm even given a mage from the start, so I can summon one right away. But the orcs also have their own necrolytes that can summon their version of this unit, the demons, who hit even harder. Not only that, but I also have to destroy 2 Horde bases before I can even march on Blackrock Spire, a pretty tall task considering that I need to fight all these enemies while also holding off the harassment coming from the Horde foes that keep on attacking my peasants, trying to damage my economy. It takes some macro, but it's not too difficult, as after a while I managed to succeed, destroying the Horde's chain of command, at which point I'm rewarded with the game's ending. The only reward you were given for beating the campaign is the ending, which honestly feels really cool. I forgot that old games used to just have these simple endings that might only give you a victory screen with maybe some special art or animation alongside text.
You won. Go home. It's over. It used to be that simple. It's so good. Now everyone expecting all sort of an everlasting post-endgame stuff. And maybe we're just corrupt. Maybe we're the bad guys. Maybe we just have too high of an expectation and we can't just accept when a game is over. Maybe we're the problem.
Telling you what happened next, but that still felt so satisfying. The human campaign's ending isn't necessarily anything special, although it does hint that there is still the unresolved issue of trying to figure out how the orcs made their way into Azeroth in the first place, which we will get to in just a moment. Because of course, the story is not done. In fact, there is something I have been hiding from you all so far. While Warcraft 3 and many later RTS titles would have multiple campaigns that all told separate...
Also, now looking back at this, I understand how much the leap in technology was between like Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. Like Warcraft 3, I bet blew some people's minds back in the day. Like, it's crazy. Like, the leap in technology, even today, it impresses me. The game looks really, really good. It just, you can see all the detailed stuff, like you can see the boats, right? You can see the ship here, like the orcs. It's crazy good. It is crazy good.
Arcs in the single continuous narrative of the game. Back in Orcs and Humans, that was not the case. In this game, these campaigns just told 2 separate sides of the same story, with one of them being considered canon that actually happened. Now, the Human campaign does have a lot of bits and pieces of the lore that are considered true. Sir Anduin Lothar really was one of Azeroth's champions who did go into the Dead Mines in search of the Tome of Divinity and needed rescuing. King Lane Rin really was the ruler of Stormwind during this era and really was assassinated by the half-orc Garona. And of course, Medivh's story was all true. He really was born to a mysterious traveler woman who was cursed in some way we don't know yet, before then becoming a powerful mage who was slain in the Tower of Karazhan, although canonically he was killed by Anduin Lothar and his apprentice Khadgar instead of me. But all that being said, this game is playing through the events of what happened during the First War in Azeroth, and the victors of that war were not the humans.
You think a human would win an
In the
orc?
Orc campaign, you take on the role of second in command to Blackhand, who again is the current war chief of the Horde. That means you play as Orgrim Doomhammer, who you can tell is an important character since he is who Orgrimmar will be named after many years later. The Orcs, coming from their homeworld of Draenor, had been filled with bloodlust, going around conquering and enslaving basically every race on their home planet. Even after many victories, though, they hadn't satisfied their craving for war, which created a risk that the various clans of orcs might begin fighting each other. That was when the Warlock clan, sensing the danger to their race, found a way to open a portal to Azeroth, which, after a series of events, kicked off the Horde's invasion. Now, Blackhand has assigned us to an outpost where we are meant to take a battalion of our own clan's forces and fight the humans. And this campaign is just as fun, if a bit more challenging than the human one. It all starts off very similar, with many missions mirroring their human counterparts. The first level, of course, is a tutorial where once again we're taught how to scout for gold mines and construct basic buildings. The next few see us attacking humans in the Swamp of Sorrows, and eventually we're told to sack the town of Grand Hamlet, a settlement that we're going to cause such devastation to, humans will eventually have to rename it to the Darker Shire it becomes. One of the famous fun facts about this game is that Blizzard wanted to ensure gameplay was balanced competitively in multiplayer matches, so they made every unit between the orcs and humans nearly identical. The footmen for the Alliance had the same armor, damage, attack speed, and sight as their counterparts, the grunts for the orcs, for example. This mirroring was true for most units, each having a counterpoint that the opposite race could build, but there were still a few unique differences that would naturally lead some players to prefer playing one race over the other. A few of those differences were minor stat tweaks, like the human archers had 1 point greater range than the orc spearmen, but the orc spearmen had 1 point greater damage. My favorite difference, though, is that each race had unique keybinds. Again, going back to a comparison with Dune 2, up until Warcraft, most RTS games were mostly played with only the mouse. Any hotkeys that were available were normally ubiquitous across any playable races or factions. I'm sure Blizzard were originally tempted to do the same thing when creating Warcraft and mirror hotkeys across races, if for nothing else than for the sake of balance, but instead, they chose not to. It was only for the basic soldier units made in the barracks, but Horde players built their 4 main units with U, S, R, and T, while the Alliance players built theirs with F, A, K, and T. This small difference might not seem like much, but play this game long enough and you will start to build a little bit of muscle memory. If you're someone that naturally keeps their hand around the ASDW keys, you're going to have a lot easier time playing the Alliance if you want to rush footmen, since you are going to be spamming the F key when building units in your barracks, compared to the Horde, who have to jump all the way over to the U key for their grunts. However, if you would rather go mass knights, that's going to be a lot more difficult for the Alliance, who have to go all the way over to hit K instead of hitting R for the orcs to build their wolf riders. I'm not sure you could say one is superior to the other.
Yeah, I really wonder what the logic behind that one was. To this day, I still don't get it.
Or they probably even...
Like, I guess maybe it's the name thing. Like, oh, spearmen for S. Okay. Or footmen for F. But why? Like, why?
Out, but the simple fact that there are unequal moments like this between the two races will naturally leave some players drifting toward playing one or the other, and the more they keep playing the race, the more that's going to get ingrained in their muscle memory, which is so cool. Even from the very first Warcraft, there were little ways Blizzard found to make players identify a preference with either playing Horde or Alliance. Getting back to the campaign, though, Mission 4 is when we get to see some divergence in the story, which further characterizes the difference between races. While the human version of this mission saw us plunge into the Deadmines to save Anduin Lothar, in the Orc version, we learn that Blackhand's daughter, Griselda, has run off with a band of ogre outlaws, and we are sent into the Deadmines to slay her at the War Chief's request. Not only does this show us how brutal the Horde is firsthand, but we also get to see their ruthlessness in the actual gameplay. If you remember, we had human clerics to heal our soldiers in the human version of this mission, but one of the other differences between races are the spells that the mages cast. For the orcs, we have necrolytes who cannot heal, instead having the ability to raise the dead from
Of course. Of course. Beautiful. The Horde needs no loser healer, boys. We just need goddamn necromancers. Perfect. You died? Well, now you get to die again.
nearby, making it a bit trickier to get through this dungeon as each one of our allies falls. I managed to complete it though, which rewards me with the next mission, where I am sent to establish an outpost in the Red Ridge Mountains. Blackhand is the leader of the Black Rock Orcs, which means I am the reason there are Black Rock Orcs out in the Red Ridge Mountains. How cool is that? Mission 6 gives us a bit more unique level design with another throwback to WoW. Here we get to attack and raise the town of Sunnyglade, but rather than destroy all of it, we're told we have to keep a tower intact so the orcs can study the research the humans had been doing into magic there. Firstly, this is a great bit of game design, having to raise a whole town while keeping one building alive, and it's also a little bit of a challenge considering how damage works in this game. I haven't mentioned it yet, but some of the difficulty that comes in playing these missions comes from how tough the units can be to control. Units aren't quite as responsive as they'll be in later.
Yeah, I love this guy energy. Yeah, because he's playing the good parts of World of Warcraft. Make him play Midnight, see what happens. See what happens. Yeah, also Gene Vox, I forgot your message. Yeah, our greatest mistake was calling it Warcraft. Someone who should be unemployed 2026. Listen, Chris Metzen didn't say that. He didn't. I don't believe Holly Longdale. I don't believe her one bit. If you show me proof he said that, I would subscribe to Retail WoW for life.
RTS titles, and one of the most powerful units in this game,
ain't no way that happened,
does not have regular locked on attacks. Instead, it fires an AoE projectile that will land wherever a unit was when fired. And since it hits AoE, this can either wipe out your whole army if you leave them clamped up exposed to an enemy catapult, or you can even damage your own units from afar if your AoE is not very careful. I managed to besiege the town though and destroy Sunnyglade apart from its tower, and that is when I noticed something really cool. If you take a look at the map layout in this mission and compare it to classic WoW's world map, you can see that the tower we have to leave standing eventually becomes the Tower of Azora in Elwyn Forest. That is such a cool throwback. Again, I can't help but geek out every time I see something like this. I'm sorry. Of course, the story doesn't end there. In our very next mission, we're told that Blackhand has overextended his forces, allowing...
Yeah, what? Can you imagine they won't announce Classic Plus, but only Wrath of the Lich King? Can WoW be saved if that happens? No. They have to announce Classic Plus. Especially after taking every single private server, just going on an absolute manhunt. Yeah, they need to announce it.
Us, Orgrim Doom.
And it needs to be good.
Hammer to march our orcs, overthrowing his
Surely
leadership
that would
and
happen.
becoming the war chief of the horde ourselves, which I happily do. By now I'm getting used to the catapults, beginning to understand their power, and it feels really fun to complete our coup in the middle of the first war. The next mission keeps the pace of things going, as Garona has been captured by the humans and is being held in Northshire Abbey, likely just before assassinating King Lane, so we have to go in and save her. This is another great mission that's even more of a challenge from the last dungeon crawl, since again, we have no healers. What we do have instead are necrolytes, as well as a few low health peons who are prisoners that we can set free, with the implication being clear. We are meant to slay our own allies so we can raise them as undead, making the trek through this dungeon easier. Something I actually have to do because this level is so challenging I failed it the first time. In the next few missions, we lead our forces to victory in the first war, raising a variety of more human villages. Some of these are more name drops, like when we're sent to destroy Goldshire and Moonbrook, two more places you obviously get to see in classic WoW. Actually, on that note, can I say, look how accurate the world map is here compared to the Azeroth we see in World of Warcraft. Another huge shout out to Bill Roper and Chris Metzen for crafting a world in this game that is quality enough it could last with minimal changes for literal decades. After all that work though, we enter the campaign's finale. Now it's time for us to march the horde on Stormwind Keep and sack the human capital. By now I've unlocked my version of the water elemental, the demons, who again are slightly different in that they have a melee attack rather than ranged, but hit much harder by comparison. Even so, this mission is pretty tough. Now I not only need to destroy 3 alliance bases, but I also have to do so while fending off attacks from raiding parties that include invisible units that can pop up out of nowhere and kill my peons. I didn't even realize invisibility was a spell the human mages could get. I keep on amassing an army and taking down enemy structures, even though I constantly find myself crippled from the harass coming from those cowardly alliance. But after a while, I managed to destroy...
They always do that. They always do their pesky tricks. The horde, definitely not the orcs, and most definitely not the orcs. They would never engage in such trickery. that would just kill you outright. That's why I'm an orc main. That's why it's Horde forever, guys. You see, it's right in front of you.
The human base and march on Stormwind Keep, successfully destroying the city,
We'll never
kickstarting
do
all the
dishonorable
trouble
kills.
that the Stonemasons
Never.
Guild and Defias Brotherhood are about to have to go through. In our victory screen, we can see how things played out in the end. The Horde have claimed victory, scattering the Alliance survivors up north, as Doomhammer is now cemented as War Chief, and the Orcish Shadow Council hints that there are lands across the Great Sea we should explore further. The Warlocks also wish to experiment a bit more with the Dark Portals, so we can potentially subjugate other worlds, although that is a story for another time. But all in all, holy hell, this game is good. I honestly just wanted to play through this game in this video before doing anything else, so I could say that I had a complete picture of the lore in the Warcraft franchise. But I did not expect that the gameplay was gonna be so fun and the lore was gonna run so deep. Warcraft 1 really showed that all the great things this series would come to be known for were present from the very start, which is insane to see firsthand. But of course, this is not the game that's better than sex.
Okay, Warcraft 2
Just
is
1 year
interesting.
after Orcs and Humans released, Blizzard managed to build and release the game's sequel, Warcraft 2: Tides of Darkness. And if any game was a single catalyst to Blizzard's eventual world dominance, it was this one. Warcraft 2 was a milestone not just in dwarfing its predecessor in sales figures, but it also had so many more innovations it brought to the quickly exploding RTS genre. This was the first game that allowed players to use a right click to command units rather than those keybinds.
Yeah, Warcraft 2 was amazing. I never played that, unfortunately. It's just, it's so interesting to see. Like, this game existed in 98. That's the year I was born. Wow. That's insane.
This was a game that included sea and aerial combat alongside the basic lane battles everyone had come to love.
How innovative that was.
This was the game that cemented the tone for the Warcraft franchise. Of course, Warcraft over the years would come to be known for its incredible ability to thread some very dark and metal storylines alongside more lighthearted jokes, which paired as these beautiful opposites.
What is that?
The first game had a few jokes.
What
like
the
if
hell
players
was that?
clicked repeatedly on a single unit, that unit would start to get annoyed.
What do you want?
Oh, it started from
Why
there.
do you keep touching me?
Warcraft 2, though, took this tone and ran with it. In this game, not only were there all sorts of Easter eggs to be found and other sneaky jokes that players might stumble across, but Blizzard went so far as to create specialized versions of stuff like voice lines.
Yeah, you should check all the games that came out in 98, crazy year for gaming. Like, when I become popular enough and I can afford to do this as a job, I'll do like a nostalgia run where I play old games I've never played before. I think that would be like a really fun thing to do.
For the review copies they sent out to gaming publications.
I love your publication. Remember, a good review for Warcraft 2. You're the best writer in all the land. Have we kissed your butt enough yet?
Most importantly for our purposes, this was the game where Bill Roper handed off story direction to his manual designer, Chris Metzen, who expanded the Warcraft universe beyond anything anyone could have expected.
Serial
Warcraft
box-sized
2 opens
video
with
games?
another
That sounds
cinematic
good.
letting us know that this game takes place 6 years after the First War. The Horde, having won after sacking Stormwind Keep, forced humanity to flee across the sea north, where they set up a new human capital of Lordaeron. There,
So, Warcraft 2 is with Jaina's father, right? With a cool tyrant? Am I wrong about that?
formed a proper alliance with the dwarves and high elves
Admiral
of the region
Proudmoore.
that helped them expand their arsenal for defense. Meanwhile, Orgrim Doomhammer is preparing to lead the Horde to chase down the human survivors, eager to wipe out their new capital out of fear that if he doesn't, humanity will exact revenge. All of this kicks off what will come to be known as the Second War, where we will see a variety of beloved characters featured in this game. Sir Anduin Lothar from the first has been promoted to Lord Regent and leads the Alliance forces, whereas the Horde is still primarily led by Orgrim, but also the leader of the Warlock clan, Gul'dan. Once again, we can dive into the manual to find a bit more detail, namely that Gul'dan was the one who worked with Medivh to open the Dark Portal in the first place, bringing the Horde of Orcs to Azeroth, as the two were apparently scheming to try and find some strange tomb of Sargeras, only stopped short when Medivh was slain. Maybe most impressively to me, though, this game has another world map included that is shockingly accurate to what we see the Eastern Kingdoms look like in Warcraft 3 and Classic WoW. Oh, it's so good. But before I get sucked into geek...
It's almost like Blizzard used to care. Nowadays, they'll create a piece of lore and they immediately retcon it like one expansion after. It's just like they did with Shadowlands. Like, they don't really care anymore. Back in the day, they used to build worlds that would last. And that's why video games used to be so good, man. Like, people actually cared.
Out over the manual again, let's go ahead and dive into our first campaign, this time starting with the orcs. If you've played this game before, you probably know why I want to save the human campaign for the end. The orc campaign kicks off with another tutorial teaching me once again about how to build a base. Here I'm meant to build a series of farms and a barracks at Zoldair so I can prepare to launch an attack on Lordaeron in the near future. Already you can see that this game has some impressive innovations, especially when compared to Warcraft 1. For instance, this was the first RTS to introduce a non-permanent fog of war, where I can still scout the map to reveal obscured terrain, but now, if I want permanent vision, I need to build structures or leave units close by, an idea that obviously became revolutionary for the genre. After learning basics, Mission 2 teaches me about the new races introduced. This one features a rescue mission where I need to go and save the troll Zoljin, leader of the Amani tribe, who has been captured by some humans nearby. This is our first experience with a unique dungeon crawl mission in the game's sequel, which is fun to see one of these so early, especially since we have another non-traditional goal of leading a trapped unit back to this circle of power. Upon unlocking my spearmen, we are then introduced to our first bit of naval combat, where we learn how to construct a shipyard and build an armada, something we can only do after collecting oil from various deposits across the sea. That's a little bit of a modern resource for this fantasy setting, but hey, it's fine. After learning all of that, we then get into our first proper missions, raising the town of Hillsbrad and completing Act 1, which rewards us with a pretty horrifying cutscene.
Whoa! Man, this game used to be brutal. This game... What is he doing? Feet inspection? What is bro on about? Well, this game used to be barbaric,
universe
actually.
Is so metal. I say that in every one of my videos now, but I can't get over it.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him. Don't ruin this. He doesn't need to become like us. He's good the way that he is now. Just let him forever encapsulate himself inside of the good Warcraft universe. Don't let him reach the other part. He would never mentally recover from this.
Grim is pleased at the destruction I've wrought on human civilization and now tasks me to head to the Dwarven lands of Casmodan. Here, I should help secure the region of Dunmoder for the Horde, pressing forward further toward Lordaeron. In general, Act 2 continues as an RTS does, introducing new units I unlock, teaching me about more features of this game, like the ability to build new town halls for expansion. But Act 2 is mainly significant because this is when you learn that Tides of Darkness is a pretty hard game. Okay, keep in mind, this was released back in the era when games had no difficulty settings, and however difficult the game was going to be was how difficult it was going to be. Games in...
Good. I hate the yellow paint on staircases gaming industry. I don't need a tip to climb a ladder. Let me figure it out on my own, and if I can't, that's a great natural filter for your game. Yeah, based. That's what we need to do today, and we need more of this. If you can't handle the pressure, don't play it.
General skewed on the harder side, as developers back then wanted to make sure that customers felt like they got their money's worth with a real challenge that required some thought and skill and investment if they wanted to see the end. But even by those standards, Warcraft 2 is a shockingly challenging game at parts. We aren't at its most difficult by a long shot. Currently, the most frustrating part of gameplay comes from having to hunt down every single last human building and unit across the map to claim victory. But with all the mechanics that we now have to juggle between land and sea and eventually air, all while also still not having the conveniences of things like rally points or building groups or unit queuing, it's gonna make the game pretty challenging by the end. Anyway, after destroying a city named Stormguard, the capital of the human nation in the Arathi Highlands, we are then treated to another great cinematic, including the turtle submarines that the Horde now has access to.
Wait,
absolutely adorable. Fittingly, our next mission is then naval-based.
I didn't even know the orcs move like that. That's kind of crazy. They had a turtle submarines? Based.
Requiring us to raise
Holy
an
shit, I'm
army
learning
to go
things.
and destroy a late game building, a human castle that stands on the middle of a well-defended island. We're told that we have to go and do this so we can capture a runestone that will allow Gul'dan to teach our ogres how to cast various magics. And I'm going to be honest, this is the first mission I really struggled with. Okay, having to both raise an army strong enough that you don't just get wiped by the insane defenses this island has, while also making sure you build up a large enough separate army to defend your base from the multiple human settlements that are going to all come at you at the same time. Not to mention, you're on a resource limit because it's not that hard to run out of gold in the only few gold mines you have nearby. Yeah, I'll be honest, I cheesed it. If you're struggling with this mission, you can send a destroyer that can attack the castle you need to take down from the sea in a position where none of the human units are going to have vision or range to attack it back. It still took me ages to build up a large enough force to take the island after that, because I didn't realize that I just needed to have one unit go touch the runestone after the castle was down. But hey, you don't get to call me bad unless you've beat this mission legit yourself. Now with the runestone in our possession, Gul'dan is able to unlock various spells for our ogres, and we use our newly powered units to press forward into Tyr's hand, establishing a base that can cut off supply lines to quell the loss. Once that's done, we're in a position to go and lay siege to the Alliance's primary oil-producing city, the city of Strathholm. God, Strathholm just can't catch a break. Finally, though, once we raise that stronghold to the ground, we march onward to quell the loss. Apparently, our success has inspired Gul'dan to create the Death Knights, which we use to march on the Elven capital, destroying that bastion too. All is going well for the Horde, but that is the moment that the plot is about to get a major twist.
Huh. Death Knights already. That's Gorefiend, right? What is that? Bro, is that Diablo? What in God's name is going on? That's actually spooky.
In the following act, we learn that Gul'dan has betrayed the Horde. Nobody understands why, but the Warlock has run off with his forces, raising volcanic islands from the ocean's floor in search of the Tomb of Sargeras. All of this should sound pretty familiar if you've played through the Frozen Throne, and it is very cool seeing this cinematic depicting something where I know exactly what's happening, even though I'm sure it was a mystery to kids back in 1995. Our task is to go and destroy what remains.
Kids? Okay, you think the people who played this game were kids? Nah, dude. At the time, balding men. Some things never change.
Of Gul'dan's forces, the Orc Stormweaver clan and the Twilight's Hammer Ogres. I personally love this level. This kind of setting and narrative device is the perfect thing for a game centered around introducing naval combat. I get to be sailing around this archipelago of islands that Gul'dan raised, wiping out his forces, although his fate is obviously left a mystery until the next game. With the subversive armies taken care of, it's now time to lead the Horde to attack Lordaeron. Before we do that, we first need to take out Dalaran to cripple the Alliance defenses, another city that can't catch a break. They put up a hell of a fight. These later missions are when the difficulty in Warcraft 2 really starts to ramp up, especially since both sides have now unlocked catapults, where once again, AoE damage from these can wipe out your forces, either from an enemy's catapult or your own friendly fire. AoE becomes even more of a threat when you unlock the final units, Dragons for the Horde and Griffin Riders for the Alliance. These units are insanely strong and deal massive AoE in a line of attack, but once again, they can hurt your own units if you don't micro carefully. And microing is actually surprisingly hard in this game, because the way it works here is that if a unit does an attack, that unit cannot perform any other action until it would be ready to attack again. This is in contrast to modern RTS games where players can move units around between attacks, but here, if you aren't able to attack again, you aren't able to move either, so heavy hitters that require a long recovery period can be sitting ducks. It feels really frustrating at first, but the more you play this game, the more you get used to it, and even start to find it really fun, if for no other reason than the challenge challenge. By the final mission, when I am laying siege to
Horde
Lordaeron,
used
I'm
green
mostly
dragons.
mass building
Yeah.
dragons, although still on the edge of my seat trying to micro
They've
them
collected
around
all
correctly.
7 balls.
In general, I think the best way I can describe Warcraft 2 is by saying it's that kind of game where you don't realize how tense you are while you're playing it. It's not until you stand up from your computer after you're done that you feel a twinge in your back because your shoulders have been scrunched up the entire time while you were grinding out missions. And
That's how you know it's a banger. Exactly like that, the way he described it. Yeah, War 1 and 2 aged pretty poorly. I'm not gonna lie, it looks actually kind of fun. It does, but yeah, mechanically speaking, man, it was kind of horrible.
anyway, after however many hours, I finished the York campaign, wiping out Lordaeron, which rewards me with another banger cinematic that is once again so brutal.
Let's see. Green Boy is coming in. Wow. They used real explosion for that? What was that? And by the way, these cinematics is exactly what we're missing from today World of Warcraft. It used to have grit. Like, look at the dark fantasy settings. Dark at night, barely any torches except for, like, or any source of light except for, like, the fire of ransacking, like, literal castle or whatever they're doing here. It's insane. It's insane. It used to be so heavily dark themed. It was so good. It was just so good. I hate the crap the Rainbow Mafia has given us today. With all, like, friendships and all this vibes. Just screw that, man. Like, let's go back to this. Is that a person? Why bro fused with his chair? What is that? What? Who made this? What is that? Okay, that's it. And why they're T-posing? Like, they're like, oh, what do we do, bro? And the other guy's like, shit, I don't know. I guess we'll die to the green stuff outside. Damn, that's kind of crazy. Maybe he looking... Oh, man, wait. Maybe he's clever. Maybe he's trying to disappear. He's like, if I don't move, they can't see me. It's like, it's like a chameleon. It's called A-pose? Yeah, A-pose.
Guards!
Guards! I think it didn't survive that. Oh my god, look at a dragon in the background. Oh,
Gosh,
wow.
what a horrifying cutscene we get. The orcs in Warcraft sure used to be evil. If nothing else, this...
They were never evil. They were just misunderstood. What are you talking about? Like, why are you calling us evil, man? Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you say such a thing? I don't know, man. I'm kind of offended here.
This game has certainly taught me that. The narrative in Warcraft 2 is a little bit different compared to its predecessor in that this game doesn't have 2 alternate timelines for each campaign, with only one being considered canon. What's considered to have actually happened in this sequel does include quite a bit from the Horde playthrough. The Runestone really was captured by Horde forces and used by Gul'dan to train the Ogre Magi. Zul'jin and the Amani Trolls really were rescued by Doomhammer after being captured by the Alliance. Much of the High Elf land is actually destroyed by the Horde. Stormguard really does fall in the Arathi Highlands. The lands surrounding Lordaeron are also destroyed, and the city only stands because Gul'dan really did betray Ogrim, pulling his forces from battle to leave and search for the tomb of Sargeras. But if you want the true canonical ending, you have to beat the human campaign, which might just be the most difficult challenge you ever see in an RTS.
Really?
The human campaign begins when the King of Lordaeron gives me orders to go off and build some outposts to help fight back against the orcs who've been harassing human settlements in South Shore and Hillsbrad. These early missions once again serve as a variety of tutorials the same way all the other campaigns did, explaining how to build buildings, unlocking new units through rescue missions, and teaching the basics of naval combat. Even though this is pretty much the 4th time I'm going through this RTS tutorializing, I honestly found this campaign's early missions crazy fun anyway, because the king that's sending me on these missions now, it's King Tyrannus. Yeah, that one. The Admiral teaching me about
That's him.
naval combat is Admiral Proudmoore. Yeah, that one. The regions I'm doing all this in are South Shore and Hillsbrad, where I'm about to get answers to questions I was literally just asking in the last episode of my Classic WoW series. I really don't think I can overstate how incredible it is that these games hold up so well, from the simple fact that Blizzard chose to tell a continuous story for all these years. Even though this story is still mostly told through scrolling text and game manuals, I found myself so invested in a 2D RTS from 1995.
I mean, the best stories are written in books, so like why not in a 2D scroller? It makes sense. It was like an active book. Like that's how people, I bet, looked at it back in the day. I never played these type of games, so maybe you guys can tell me better because you're older and bolder, but it's just like reading a book. It's like fantastic. People care about great stories, and it's true to this day. The fact that Blizzard just stopped making them, it's like a problem on its own. But they didn't use it like back in the day. Like back in the day, they actually made some good stuff, and that's why people cared. And that's actually what builds such a great franchise. It's consistency and great story writing. Yeah, imagine writing a good story in a video game. I know.
Anyway, after the first few missions where I successfully prove my tactical prowess, repelling the orcs from South Shore and Hillsbrad, in the next act, the High Command sends us off to the front lines where we first fight off the Horde from Dun Modr before pressing further. This is when Lord Anduin Lothar from Orcs and Humans makes his return, as he helps guide us to wiping out various orc encampments in Thandil Valley and the primary base of operations they have in Khazmodan. And once again, some of these missions prove to be a real challenge. It's really hard to describe this accurately because on the one hand, these levels never really feel like you're on equal footing to the AI opponents, but it also never really feels unfair. In some ways, this game often feels like what an RTS does when it's at its best, giving tactical battles that are enough of a challenge that when you overcome one, it often feels like you did so through your wits and genuine military strategy. This is definitely the kind of game where if you ever got stuck on one of these levels, it would be completely worth it to go out and buy a strategy guide that would give you a build order or a unit composition.
You had cheats on books. You had the entire map revealed to you. Oh, that's awesome, dude. Oh, fuck, man. I hate humanity. We've progressed too far, man. We gotta go back. We gotta go back to this. I would, like, legitimately would have purchased such a thing. I would have purchased it for like $100 even. I don't care. Like, give me some manuals with pictures and story of a game that I enjoy. I'll buy that. I'll buy that in a heartbeat.
Make things a bit easier. Anyway, I managed to push back the Horde's forces after a few restarts, at which point Lord
looks
Lothar
like a cone
asks
head.
me to aid him in the Northlands near Quel'Thalas.
What the fuck? What? How a fireball made it explode this way?
Lord Lothar asks me to aid him in the Northlands.
It got hit
near
and then it went like
Quel'Thalas.
boom.
That's because there's been a peasant uprising who I need to put down so we can maintain the region. At first I figured this is just another mirror match mission, but I am then surprised when I find that my foe is draped in the color orange. Hang on. Orange subversives in the Northern Eastern Kingdoms? Are these the Syndicate I just saw in Classic WoW? I doubt these guys
Zeppelins
are
are
literally
filled
the
with
exact
helium?
same mobs I was just fighting
True.
in Hillsbrad, but
Actually, you're right.
through this level starts to give such
just the way
great
that it
context
exploded.
to the region of Hillsbrad and Alterac and how they ended up the way they did years later. It is so fun every time I see this. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm repeating myself again. I put down the Uprising, which rewards me with another cameo.
Yeah, it just
Now, Lord
combusted
Uther
instantaneously.
Lightbringer
It was
and
so
his
hilarious.
paladins come to offer aid as Anduin Lothar asks we escort him to the island township of Kyrdaro, which we do no problem. This mission was actually a fairly easy one compared to some of the other recent missions we've seen, since Uther's ship is the only one we need to keep alive. I should have known, though, this quick level was setting me up for frustration, since the next mission turns the difficulty all the way up. Okay, so mission 10 is when I'm told that we've captured a number of the renegade Alterac soldiers, and I need to transport them through Horde forces to Lordaeron for interrogation. interrogation. As simple as that may seem at first, not only is this going to involve building up a large enough base to a point where I can tech up to transport ships while also fighting off 2 horde factions that are attacking me at once, but these peasants also aren't accessible by a single body of water. There is a strip of land with another horde encampment cutting the map in 2, so I also have to wipe out that base and then rebuild another shipyard and transport, and then I also have to build destroyers because there's a whole maze of horde towers I need to sail through to actually reach the prisoners and take them back to base. Like, I know you're watching a YouTube video and I'm probably compressing and summarizing each one of these levels into a minute or 2 of commentary.
It took hours.
Let me try to give some perspective. A few of these missions are taking multiple restarts and hours for me to complete. And it's so fun. Gosh,
wow.
And it so starts an hour.
What in God's name? Oh my days. It took him 11 hours. Jesus. Okay. I mean, listen, people at the time, that's all they had, right? They didn't really care. But I guess in this day and age, yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a rough one. But get good.
For me to complete.
Of course.
And it's so fun. Gosh, it is so fun the way that this game challenges your patience and skill, and it makes beating these levels feel so satisfying. Anyway, after I managed to succeed in bringing the prisoners back for interrogation, that gives me some pertinent intel. The sovereign ruler of Alterac, Lord Paranold, has apparently been working with the Horde since the beginning of the war, having signed a non-aggression pact and allowing them passage through the Arathi Highlands. As such, we are told to go out and wipe his kingdom and its capital Stromgarde from the face of the map, which will leave nothing more than a little outpost in the region years later. This leads to one of the most fun missions in the whole game, as it starts off with a whole peasant rescue mini dungeon crawl that then feeds into an all-out assault by land and air on a well-defended fortress. For a level that may have just started off as a simple excuse to have a mirror matchup, it feels really fun, and beating this mission rewards you with entrance to the final act, which is one hell of a ride. With the Alterac Rebellion destroyed, it's now time to finish the war with the Horde. The Orcs are planning on retreating back to the mainland of the south. Before they do, Lord Lothar and Admiral Proudmoore order us to go and cripple their naval supply lines to make retreat impossible, which goes by swimmingly. At this point, the Orcs have fallen so far, they seem ready to surrender. They send word that they wish to parley, so Lothar goes off to meet with Orgrim Doomhammer at Blackrock Spire. In general, this feels like a really great moment. There can finally be peace between the two races, and what a great character to go off and negotiate that peace. The hero we saved all the way back in Warcraft 1, negotiating with the character we played in that game's opposite campaign. But then, no reports have been heard from him in days, so the king sends us off to Blackrock Spire to investigate, and then the mission starts with our camera centered on Lothar and his troops.
We are under attack.
I guess that didn't go well.
Now, this might have not looked like much to you, but honestly, for 1995, it was shocking. Anduin Lothar was the one hero of the Alliance who had been around since the first game. He had been a staple of the franchise and the longest continuous character in the narrative so far. Not only that, this was the first time an action we had no control over played out in-game rather than just being told to us through pre-mission text or the game manual, and that made it heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking that you could try to restart the mission as many times as you want, attempt to take control of Lothar and save him, but no matter how many times you tried, he would always meet the same fate.
You cannot.
In my research for this video, I saw comments from people who played this mission back in the day that said when they saw this happen, they were devastated. Nobody expected this. It genuinely shocked people to a point where gamers on early internet forums would share cheats that you could use in the console command just to have a way to save Lothar. Of course, wanting to avenge him, I moved my army to take down Blackrock Spire and all enemy forces. This was made easier by my newly unlocked mounted griffins, who were still just as slow.
Such a cool unit. This and gyrocopters. Dude, I really hope we get them in Warcraft 3. I know you do get gyrocopters, but do you get the griffin guys? Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, the Alliance literally send the Avenger to the Orc homeworld and blow it up. Not even kidding. Yeah, alliance kind of do be like that.
And difficult to micro as the dragons were before, but I
Dwarves
managed to
unit are
destroy
so
the
sick.
enemy's stronghold, which then feeds into the last level of the game, which I was not prepared for. Alright, so now the Horde has been beaten back, it is time for us to end this once and for all by closing the Dark Portal itself. With Lothar dead, it falls on me to lead a strike force to destroy it, claiming ultimate victory for Lordaeron and the Alliance, and that is going to be easier said than done. The level begins when players are given a well-stacked army to the south, the first task being sailing this army to the mainland where we can establish a base. There's only one spot you can land, defended by some Horde forces and towers off to the west. And on my first try, I figured it shouldn't be that hard, so I sent my forces to try and destroy these towers and the Ogre Magi behind them. Okay, maybe it's not going to be that easy. I can see now I must need to land my army at the same time as when the boats are hitting the shoreline, so I can defeat this surprisingly large foe. So I do that. But everybody still dies? Okay, maybe I need to micro better. What if I take my ships and use them to pick off some of the enemy towers and catapults before I then land the whole army? As a reminder, the catapults as well as the towers in this game don't attack units with a locked-on attack. They still have their AoE that can be dodged. It's hard to dodge their attacks with my slow-moving destroyer. Oh god, it's really hard. But after a few tries, I finally managed to kill all the towers and ogres here, landing with my peasants to build up an army ready to macro up and take on the Dark Portal, only to have a dragon show up and AoE my whole force down before I can train a single new unit. All right. Maybe this level is going to be a bit harder than I thought. At this point, I am not ashamed to say that I felt a little lost, so I looked up how other players...
You see, Miss Deer, that's why I have you. Because I don't want to be looking up guides. You can just tell me how to play and win the game. Like, Warcraft 3, I'm playing, obviously, on, like, the hardest difficulty. It's, like, insane. Especially if you're bad at micromanagement, because I haven't really played RTS before. It's just crazy. It goes wild. So it's a good thing we have people that are knowledgeable to guide me through it. And remind me to click stuff.
Strategized in this level because I just kept on failing at it over and over, and it turns out the human campaign finale of Warcraft 2 is famously one of the hardest levels to ever be put into any RTS ever. It turns out the general strategy is, first, you have to be amazing at microing your boats around to pick off the towers and catapults so you can land your forces on the shoreline intact. Then you have to kill all the ogres while keeping your rangers alive, because the game is going to be throwing late game dragons at you over and over ad infinitum until you complete the mission. Armed with this knowledge, I got back to trying to figure something out. After my first few attempts, I managed a playthrough where I landed my armies on the shore and kept the rangers alive. You get better at microing here the more and more you play. I also learned that the 3 orange dragons that showed up and killed me on one of my playthroughs only came because I destroyed every single one of the ogre buildings. That's a trigger the game has, and I can stall their attack until I have some defenses if I leave one of the ogre mounds up. However, as I land another run and start rushing farms to try and train more troops and bolster my defenses, I quickly learn that the game sends so many regular dragons at you regardless that they still wipe out my archers and my whole base before I even train a single new archer every single time I play this level, no matter what I do. Back to the drawing board. Okay, so then I figure out that to beat this level, you have to use some towers. You're supply blocked until you build up 1,000,000 farms, and increasing supply to build new units is just going to take way too long. Instead, you need to rush a lumber mill to unlock ranged towers, and then you can start using those as defenses against the dragons. Armed with this new knowledge...
The exact same thing with Warcraft 3. You're in a pinch, infinite towers stacked right next to your most important base, and you'll never lose. Damn. Some things never change.
I got a really good run on my next playthrough. I sniped the whole coastline for a clear and easy landing with almost my entire army surviving. I rushed the correct buildings, teching to towers fast enough that they actually propelled most of the dragons back. I got a real proper base built and started working on my economy, successfully expanding to destroy the ogre encampment while fighting back the 3 orange dragons that all came afterward, and I keep this run going. I keep it going for 60 minutes. I'm successfully fighting off the dragons, building up a larger and larger army, and when I think I have a large enough force to expand further, I start moving across the map And then my army falls, and I can't rebuild it because all of my gold mines have run dry. Not only is this just a really hard level because you have to fight off late game opponents constantly, even from the very early game, but you're also effectively on a timer because you're given a limited amount of gold where if you use it unoptimally, you can't beat the game. Ugh. But I keep trying. I get really good at sniping the shoreline, keeping my ships alive. I get really good at taking the beach like it is goddamn D-Day. I start to learn exactly how many towers I need and where to build them so I don't waste any gold buying more defenses than necessary. But it is still not enough. The dragons still overwhelm me. Eventually, I figure out a slightly cheesy strategy. I can be mass rushing griffins. Griffin riders, of course, can fly directly to the dark portal and destroy it without having to make my way through the wildly large number of other horde forces that populate the map. So I learn how to defend my little landing zone and mass rush flying units. It takes ages to do. It's so hard. And after so many tries, I finally get a run where I train what I think are enough griffins to win the game. I make a beeline for the dark portal with them trying to finish the war. And when I get there, I met with aerial resistance of flying demons that tear my griffins to shreds. They're so hard to fight back.
Oh man, that sounds horrifying. My god, this quest is like, holy, look at how many things bro has to deal with. Jesus, that's crazy. How do you win that? I don't know, maybe he just like, he makes it sound impossible. It sounds insanely difficult. Like, that actually sounds tough as hell.
Because of the terrible micro that comes from my slow-moving riders who just keep on accidentally attacking each other. Oh, God. Oh. I fail again and again and again.
His poor
I'm
wifey.
shocked at how hard this final mission is. And then I try one more time.
He's about to cook. Games used to be built different. It was just like a different time. He's getting them. Army alive. Okay, building a base, that's good. Upgrading towers. Always the right call. Sniping the dragons. Nice. Building more aviaries. Infinite Griffin cheat. He's doing it. He's conquering the dark portal. He micromanaged straight into a storm, but that's fine, we'll forgive him. There we go. He's making it. Imagine losing this on 1 HP for the dark portal. That is it. That is it. He got it. He got it on. Man, look at how he's moving the cursor. You know he was hella happy getting this over with. My God. You're greeted with cinematic. Oh, wow. It actually looks good.
Honestly, seeing that cutscene, I felt more accomplished than I have maybe ever before playing any video game. My body was so filled with adrenaline, I literally jumped up from my seat on that victory screen and started shouting as I paced around the room while the ending cutscene played. Oh my God, yes! Oh
they make it go boom.
Yes!
Yeah, real war isn't that complicated. True.
Yes! Let's go! Woo! Honestly, this brought me back. This brought me back to when games were something that you didn't necessarily beat because you wanted an achievement or whatever. You just wanted to beat the game because then you could say that you had beaten it. The cutscene you're rewarded with after finally accomplishing what felt like an impossible task moments ago, even a low poly cinematic like this, that was sweeter than any reward I could have been given.
It actually looks really good.
It made it all worth it. You know, looking back on the experience now, I honestly don't know what I expected when I started this video project. But suffice to say, I did not expect that these two games...
Wait, wasn't the mage who blew up the portal in the cinematic is now in a wheelchair or something?
...would be as good as they were. I thought there might be glimpses of the greatness that Warcraft would eventually have, and that you could maybe find bits and pieces here and there that would hint
at
now
how
the
good
this series would become. But no, These games weren't just like laying the groundwork for Warcraft to eventually become great later. Everything that makes this franchise great was there from the start. So I guess going back to the question I asked at the very start of this video, are these games worth it? Should you pick them up yourself and play them even after all these years? No. Do not play them. I stopped having sex with my wife so I could beat this damn game. It's still just as addicting as ever. I haven't even gotten to the expansion for Warcraft 2, Beyond the Dark Portal, which is just more of this, more challenging RTS missions with whole new mechanics like heroes that you get to play, Alaria Windrunner, Khadgar, Grom Hellscream, and more. Apparently this is even harder than the base game. People have called it the Dark Souls of RTS titles, unironically, not even as a joke. I'm sure I'll play through it later though and make a separate video essay about my experiences there.
Of course.
Maybe as a channel member exclusive.
That's the end of the
for
video.
all of you who've joined membership. Shout out to all the channel members, by the way, for supporting my content. I hope you've had fun with this video. And shout out to you if you're still listening to my voice now. I seriously appreciate you giving me the time of day, whether you are a fan of these classic games, reliving the glory days, or a new fan who had never seen them before. I hope you enjoyed going on this trip down memory lane with me. Subscribe for more.
It's so good. This guy videos, man, like guys, he makes the best WoW content out there. It's crazy good. It's just, my god. He's such a great storyteller too. He can really pass this entire thing. It's like, I didn't even notice like 1 hour had gone by. It was that good. My days. Yeah, Warcraft 2 was tough as nails for me. He made it look extremely difficult. Yeah, I really hate these upscale smooth graphic. The pixelated 90s have so much more aura. I agree. I actually agree. Yeah, Hero and Warcraft 2 are just normal units with stronger stats. I can see that. Yeah, the new graphics are weird. I hate him. Bro, why? Like, he's great. He's a fantastic content creator. I think he's like the best WoW content creator. And he doesn't even play the game. Like, I always look up for his videos, and I never look up for anyone videos. Whenever a video comes out of someone that, like, I know and I like his videos, I'm like, oh, cool. Whenever his videos come out, I'm super pumped. I know it's about to be a banger. I love long format videos. I love, like, this type of storytelling. He's phenomenal. I'm gonna leave you guys a link. Make sure to subscribe and like his videos. Like, he's truly outstanding.